What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different than I normally do. We're going to be ranking the pickleball companies from best to worst. I'd actually love it if you guys took my paddle tier list quiz and then like tagged me on Instagram with your tier list. I'd actually really love to see how you guys rank your paddles. But yeah, we're going to go through this and I'm going to tell you what I think the best and worst brands are. All right, so first off, I guess let's just start with like Onyx. So Onyx basically only has the Z5 and the Onyx Premier. Like that's essentially all they've got for paddle lineup. And in my opinion, I don't know why the Z5 is still popular. I honestly think it keeps getting sold because it used to be a paddle that was pretty good and popular. And it, at $80, maybe it's not a bad deal, but I don't know. Nomex Core, it's loud. I don't know. I just don't think it's that great of a paddle. And then the Onyx Premier, like, it's fine, but you don't see that many people using it. I'm going to go with C tier on this one. Next up, let's do Gamma. So Gamma's interesting. I've not really loved any of their paddles. They don't get great spin. They're not doing anything technology-wise that's interesting. It's just like a composite or graphite face, polymer core. They just don't do anything that special in my opinion. And at $180, I expect you to start doing something a little bit different. And then like their premium paddles, the 206, 505, and the 405, they're all literally the same shape. So it's all just elongated. They don't have a really long handle. They don't have a standard shape version. They do, if you go down a tier, they do have other paddles in different shapes, but I don't know. I've not really cared for Gamma that much, so I'm going to go C tier on this one. I think if you look performance-wise compared to other paddles on the market right now, they've like really fallen behind a lot. Let's do ProKennex. So they're basically most well known, I feel like, in the tennis elbow community. Like if you have tennis elbow, there's a good chance a ProKennex paddle is going to help you, or that you've tried a ProKennex paddle. They get pretty good spin in my spin test, but they don't have a very diverse lineup of paddles. Basically, they only offer things in like a standard shape, short handle. There's no elongated, and they haven't come out with anything in a little bit. I know they are actually coming out with some new stuff. They've teased some images which actually look really interesting, so that might make them just a little bit more interesting. But with what we know for right now, I'm going to put ProKennex at like B. I think they make fine paddles, spins good, but they don't have a very diverse lineup of options, so I feel like you kind of limit who can use your paddles. Next up, let's go Franklin. And this one's tough, and I'm leaning towards B because they basically only have one paddle. They have the Franklin Signature paddle, which was really popular because of Ben Johns, and obviously it clearly performs fairly well because other pros are still using it. A lot of amateurs really like it. At $100, it's probably a pretty good value, I'm not going to lie, but the grit wears off. And that's like the biggest thing this paddle's known for, is in like a week or less, depending on who you are, that grit's gone. In fact, I know several pros who, when they go to a tournament, they bring like 6 Franklin Signature paddles and they use a new one every single day. The consumer can't do that feasibly. So I'm going to put Franklin in B tier. Also, a lot of their commercials are really not great. Some of their commercials could really use some work.
This paddle is the answer.
A Ben Johns custom paddle by Franklin for me.
Next up, let's do Diadem. That one's actually pretty easy. I'd put them in A tier. And now what's funny about this is I think everyone at Diadem really doesn't like me. I have had some people message me after talking to Diadem, and Diadem always seems to talk like a little bit negatively of me, and they don't respond to anything I ask them anymore. So, and I think it's just because in my Warrior review, I just explained that the paddle breaks because of the time. The thing broke all the time. I had broke one. My second one was starting to have issues. Everyone I knew who had one, it broke. My brothers broke. Like, they just broke all the time. Now, it sounds like they fixed that issue, so that's great. But I feel like they just didn't appreciate me saying that. But I don't know. I'm here to tell you guys what you want to know, and you don't want to buy a paddle that's going to break. Next up, let's do Yola. So Yola, honestly, that's an easy S tier. I don't even have to think about that. Yola just came like swinging when they came on the market. Like they came out with all these raw carbon fiber surfaces, which a lot of people are doing now, but I feel like you have to have it just because it's proven to be a good surface that people tend to like. And they just had so many paddles. They had the Ben Johns Hyperion CFS, great performing paddle, was my primary paddle for a little bit. Then if that was too head heavy or heavy for you, you've got the Vision lineup. Now you've got a 16 millimeter paddle and a 14 millimeter paddle, doesn't weigh as much. Now you've got thickness options. You've got the Yola Radius for the table tennis players, good sweet spot, it's really light. They just came out with a really diverse line of paddles. You've got the Solaire. It's a wide body paddle that's just like the Ben Johns. So if you don't want elongated, but you wanted a Ben Johns and a fat paddle, you've got that one. So I think they just did a great job coming onto the scene and having really good performing paddles. And I also just see them everywhere these days. Like they are all over the place. So yeah, Yola gets S tier. It's not even a hard one for me. Next up, One Shot. Honestly, I'm gonna put One Shot in C tier. I think the Flip Shot was honestly just a flop of a paddle. I think it wasn't executed very well. Had spray-on grit. I think all of their paddles are using spray-on grit, if I recall correctly, and I don't see them that often. So yeah, we're gonna go C tier. I didn't care for that. Paddle Tech. Ooh, that's kind of hard if I'm gonna be honest. I feel like they're A or B tier. So on one hand, they haven't come out with anything new in a long time. Like since I've been in pickleball, I don't think they've released a new paddle. So at least a year, maybe even 2 years, they haven't come out with anything. And I feel like they're starting to lag behind because spin on their paddles isn't that great, but they do feel pretty nice. Like I kind of enjoy hitting with a Paddle Tech, but you're just missing good spin. Like everyone else has it. Like they've got these raw carbon fiber surfaces or they're doing other techniques to get great spin. But they do have a diverse paddle lineup. We might revisit this, maybe, but I'll go A tier because a lot of people still like them, used by Annalie Waters and Lee Waters, so obviously still pretty good paddles, even if they're lagging behind. Yeah, we'll go A tier. Oh, hang on, before we move on, I just noticed that this says D tier. This is actually supposed to be F, or at least I want it to be F, because if you're at the bottom of the tier, you're F tier. All right, let's do ProXR. Okay, so what's interesting about them is, first of all, I think their commercials are really not great. Every time I see one, I just kind of I cringe a little bit because I'm like, the way they market their paddles is so weird. They talk about reload time all the time. And I've asked them, and I've asked other people, what the heck does reload time mean? Like, we're not whipping out pistols. Like, how quick can I reload a magazine or something? We're talking about a pickleball paddle. And every time they say, like, when you volley and, like, you reset your hand back to, like, a ready position. And they talk about their handle being able to make that faster. And the handle, in my opinion, has nothing to do with me taking my hand from here to here. Like, it doesn't make that faster or less fast. So that, to me, is just like a really weird marketing claim that has kind of always irked me. But I will say, when I got the paddle, it performed way better than I thought. Like, way, 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 way better. Has really good grip. It was over 1,500 RPM. Played pretty nice overall. But that handle is weird. If you hold a continental grip, it actually feels pretty good. But if you go outside of continental in any way, it does not feel good in my opinion. I do a SemiWestern grip for my drives, and it just does not feel good for SemiWestern. So they have pretty good paddles. They are over $200, which always surprises me. I don't know if I'd want to pay over $200 for that. I'm gonna go B tier because they've got decent paddles. Price is kind of weird. Handles a little weird. Could be a good thing. I don't know. We're just going to go B tier. All right, next up, let's do Electrum. That's an easy A tier for me, if I'm being honest. You see their paddles all over the place. I think they make good ones. I didn't really care for the Pro or the Pro 2, if I'm being honest, like at all. But the Model E, that is still one of my favorite paddles. Like that Model E, that's just, it's a good paddle. I really like the Model E. I think it's their best paddle by quite a bit. So yeah, even though they don't have a big diverse lineup, the Model E is just a really good paddle. All right, let's do Adidas next. If you guys know me at all, then you know Adidas is F tier for sure. They came onto the pickleball scene trying to charge like $180 to $190. Like, actually, how much are their paddles right now? I don't even know. Adidas Pickleball. $190, literally $190 for their premium paddle. Like, it is not worth $190 at all. Yeah, I just think at that price range, it's objectively a bad paddle, and it's way too much money. Babolat, I'm gonna put Babolat in C tier. Well, it's kind of tough. I don't think Babolat No, I'm going to stick with C tier because their paddle lineup's not that diverse. I haven't seen them do anything super fancy. I know a couple friends who really like them, but yeah, Babolat gets C tier for now. Gearbox is going to go A tier. Even though I'm not necessarily a giant fan of Gearbox paddles, like for my play style, I think they make a really unique paddle. They're the only ones that do carbon fiber for the whole build. Things practically indestructible, like polymer breaks all the time. You're not breaking a Gearbox unless you're just insane. Like, you're not going to break it. They get really high spin, even though they're not that gritty. I thought their whole hyperbite thing was a gimmick, and then it clearly wasn't. If you look at my spin test sheet, it ranks very well. So yeah, I think Gearbox is definitely up there, even though I'm not personally a giant fan of the paddles. Head, see, I really want to put Head in A tier, but I don't think I can because their paddle lineup is not diverse. I love their Head Radical Tour Co. I think it is an awesome steal of a paddle at $134. It's so good. But they basically only have short handles. They only do standard shapes. They're just not very diverse. So I have to go B, unfortunately. I really don't want to put them in B tier. I really want to put them in A tier. I would almost even want to put them in S tier because that's how much I like the Head Radical Tour Co. But I just think their lineup isn't diverse enough to be put in S tier. Engage, I'll put them in A tier. I think the Pursuit's kind of overrated, if you ask me. I think at $200, there's other raw carbon fiber paddles that perform better, but they do give you good options. You've got a long handle option, short handle, and then a thick core or not thick core, and a lot of their paddles offer that lineup. I think the Encore is actually a pretty good paddle. Feels really nice hitting that one. So even though I think the Pursuit's kind of overrated, Encore's good and it's cheaper. So yeah, Engage is also USA made, so you got to give them some bonus points for that. So we'll put Engage in A tier. Pro Lite, oh man, that's a debate between C and F. Because their paddles, some of their premium paddles, I think are over $200 now. Actually, let me check that. Yeah, they're at $210. I swear these were like $170 or $180. These were way cheaper before. Okay, that's weird. Okay, at $210, I don't think those are bad paddles. Those are also USA built. They're built pretty well. They don't have great texture for spin. I think it was like less than 1100 RPM, which is pretty unacceptable in today's standard of pickleball paddles, if you ask me. And at $210, it's kind of a tough sell, and no one really uses them anymore. I'll go C tier. I don't think they deserve F tier because the paddle doesn't really perform bad, but $210 is just a lot of money. Yeah, we'll go C tier, but they're teetering the line. All right, SellKirk, that's, in my opinion, that's an easy S tier. If you asked me that beginning of this year, like January 2022, what do you rank SellKirk? I would have gone like B or C tier. The 2.0 line was supposed to be an improvement on spin. They basically didn't improve it. They went from like 1,000 RPM to like 1,100 RPM. So yes, technically a 10% increase, but when you're already like at the bottom of spin and you increase 10%, that doesn't mean a whole lot. I just didn't really care for them. I totally would have put them B or C tier, but now they just went crazy this year. Like SellKirk Labs came out. Then the Omega Max for SLK just came out. So you've got the Power Air 002, 003, and SLK Omega Max 001. That was a total flop of a paddle. I'll be curious to see how the remake of that one is. We'll see. I don't necessarily have high hopes for that. But Power Air, objectively, super good paddle. Best spin in the game, super high power, not super forgiving, but it's a power paddle, so that just kind of comes with territory. 003 is my personal choice of weapon right now. I really like that paddle. And the Omega Max at $140 is a steal for how much spin you get, and it's just an all-around good performing paddle. So props to them for going from what just seems kind of mediocre to like really good tier pickleball. Vulcan, this one's tough because I'm friends with the engineer at Vulcan, and he's a super cool guy. He's super smart, and he's told me a lot about what makes their paddles unique. They're also made in the US, and there's just a lot of really cool things that go into Vulcan paddles. But technology-wise, they are kind of lagging behind, mostly in grit. I know that they're working on some stuff for the future. I don't know when that's coming out. If I were able to tell you guys what that was and get you excited about it, I'd probably put them in A tier, but I think I'm going to have to go B tier because that stuff doesn't exist yet, and their paddles are just kind of lagging behind right now. But the B 740 Max, the one that Jay DeVilliers uses, that paddle's nice. Like, it's got a really nice feel to it. So I wouldn't sleep on Vulcan. I think they're going to get better here in the next year, but for now they get B tier. Grooven and Carbon, I mean, it's like basically the same thing. It's just raw carbon fiber surfaces. I'll give Grooven A tier because what they did good is they came out with a diverse line of paddles that filled different niches in the market that other people hadn't really filled yet. The 16H has a really long handle. No one else had really done that. Engage did do it, but their paddle hits really hard, and the Grooven 16H is pretty soft. They also have the 16E, which is basically just a Model E. I'm actually almost entirely convinced it's literally a Model E with a different logo on it and made a little bit lighter. I can't confirm that yet, but that from play testing, that's kind of how it feels to me. And then they have some other shapes, like they have a rounded one. Like, I think they just came out with a good, diverse lineup of paddles, and then they were cheaper than everyone else. So if you're at least equal with them in performance, but now you're cheaper, you're technically the better value. So that's what I think they did well, because all their paddles are like $160. So we'll put them there. Carbon teeters between A and B tier, if I'm going to be honest. There was obviously Gritgate. It seems like they've resolved that, and they actually did resolve it really well. I think they treated their customers almost better than they needed to, so that gets some bonus points. I don't know how the new ones perform. I haven't got to hit them yet. I'm hoping to get some soon and play with them, but I'll go A tier. They did just come out with the Carbon 14mm. A lot of people really love them. We'll see how the new ones are. If they perform similarly to the old ones, just legal, then I think they'll still be good paddles. So this is my tier list, guys. I would be curious to know how you rank it. Let me know down in the comments what your tier list for these paddles would be and your reasoning for them. I don't know. I feel this is a pretty good tier list, but you let me know down in the comments what you think. And if you want to take this test, I will leave a link down in the description and you can try it yourself. Tag me on Instagram, post it on your story. I would love to see what your tier list is. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.